The India Today Data Intelligence Unit has identified 5 key game changers that will determine who will win Bihar on the 10th and the extent of that victory. Let's start with game changer number 1, by far the most important game changer, the youth vote. And remember, as you look at this data compiled by Access My India for India Today, you will realize that the gap between the voters saying they voted for the Gadbandhan versus those who voted for the NDA decreases as you go up the age pyramid. So the younger you are in this election, according to our post-poll study, the more likely you are to have voted for the RJD and the Congress. Now, typically in a state like Bihar, you'd imagine that a youth from an upper caste community would show greater affinity to vote for an NDA candidate than he would for the RJD. However, this poll shows that isn't the case. What does this mean? Is this a one-off just for this election, or is the caste arithmetic associated with Indian electioneering changing forever? Let's spend some time talking about that. I want to introduce you to our guests joining us for this program, starting with Professor Ashwini Kumar at the TIS in Mumbai. He's written about Bihar extensively and researched this issue as well. We also have Sanjay Kumar, director at CSDS, one of India's leading, most respected psephologists. Supriya Srinath joins us from the Congress Party. With us on this broadcast representing the BJP is Syed Zafar Islam. Representing the Janata Dal United is Dr. Sunil Singh. And last but not least, the man who already looks very happy and has been celebrating as we were prepping for this show is Dr. Naval Kishore from the RJD. So welcome to all our guests. I want to go across first and foremost to Ashwini Kumar, because we've seen this happen in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, but that was for candidate Modi getting another term. Now it seems to be happening in state assembly elections as well. The youth between 18 and 25 up till the age of 35 doesn't seem as obsessed with the idea of voting for a candidate from their caste as members of older generations. Is Indian elections changing, or is this something that we're just seeing in this one particular election in Bihar because of all that's happened in the build-up, the recession, the joblessness, the migration? Ashwini Kumar.
Rahul, thank you very much for a very nice introduction to the whole phenomenon of youth voter in India. My sense, and I've been very consistent on this issue since the beginning of this election, and also I'm looking at the larger landscape of electoral studies. Time has come, the Bihar election result today, tomorrow, as we have seen from the exit polls, that Tejasvi is way ahead of others. It's not going to be ordinary election. I've been saying very clearly and loudly rather, that it's a rare sort of generational event that attains landmark significance because it opens up new possibilities of political realignments and ideological shifts, not just in Bihar, but across India. So what we need to look at through the verdict of Bihar, extraordinary verdict of Bihar and dramatic verdict of Bihar, that Indian political landscape is changing. And this change has been possible by a demographic shift, So I have been calling it youth insurgency, in its sociological and political sense too. For some of us, who have been working on electoral data for a long time, I think time has come that we need to factor into youth vote in a far more, organized and systematic sense. So this is where I'm
You're
sure
calling
that
this a youth insurgency. I find that very interesting, because what was earlier the Muslim Yadav vote bank, and this will be one of the defining features if this post-poll study is correct, is now the MYY vote bank. Sanjay Kumar, is this youth insurgency unique to this election, or do you believe how we view the Indian election scenario itself needs to change? Because you can't just imagine that this is an upper caste candidate, therefore he'll draw upper caste, cutting across age barriers on his particular seat. That idea of how India polls is changing, not just at the center, but also in the states.
So it is unique to the circumstances. For anything, if we want to look at the pattern, we have to look at the data over a period of time. There is no evidence to suggest that in the past assembly election, we have seen similar upsurge of the youth. And calling it youth insurgency, I think is too imaginary. I won't call it a youth insurgency. It's a youth mobilization which has taken place at one particular moment when, at the backdrop of Corona and also what has been happening in the state with regard to unemployment. But I don't see this emerging as a big pattern across the state.